The control deck hummed at a frequency. Marlow felt it in his molars and in the scar tissue above his left eye. The thrum came from the power regulators on the Venture. It meant they were failing. He kept his eyes on the sensor display. The station at the heart of the system hung silent on the screen. No transmissions, no traffic, no beacon pulse. Dustfall should have been alive with trader chatter and docking requests. It showed as a dead stone against the dark. Nothing made sense. The fleet had drifted for 3 weeks after their last jump. 3 weeks of reserve power, 3 weeks of recycled air. It tasted like every breath someone else had already taken. They had come here for refueling and for news. Instead, they got silence. Dies wiped her palms on her thighs before she touched her datapad. Old habit from the burns. The skin on her forearms was a map of scar tissue. She still reached for things like she expected them to be hot. She gave the number without looking up. Life support on the Venture is down to 67% efficiency. Marlow already knew the number. He had been doing the math in his head every hour for the last 7 days. Cut consumption. We already cut it twice. Cut it again. She tapped the screen. The burned scars on her forearms caught the low light. That gives us 40 days of clean air, maybe 50 if we stop using the galley scrubbers. Do it. Dies looked up at him. Her eyes were red at the edges. She had not slept in 2 days. People are going to notice the air getting thin. Let them notice, Marlow said. They will notice a lot more when there is no air at all. His comm chimed, Captain Thero from the Wakeful. He tapped the channel open. Her voice came through flat and controlled. She always sounded like that, even when angry or afraid. The control was the point. Marlow, I have a contact, small vessel, coming from the system's outer edge. Organic construction, no transponder. Dies looked at him. He looked at the sensor display. The vessel was a speck against the dark. Small, gray. It left a faint trail of luminescent spores in the vacuum. The Wakeful's magnification feed showed the spores clearly. They glittered like dust caught in a light beam. We do not have a profile for that design, Thero said, requesting permission to fire a warning shot. Marlow's thumb moved along the scar on his eyebrow, an old habit. He did not notice himself doing it anymore. Denied. Sir, it is coming to the station, not to us. I want to see what it does first. A pause. Thero did not like being overruled, but she also did not argue. Marlow kept her on the Wakeful for that reason. She followed orders she disagreed with. She just made sure everyone knew she disagreed. The ship docked with Dustfall. It took 37 minutes. Marlow counted them. Dies stood beside him with her hands shoved into her pockets so she would not wipe them on her thighs. The sensor feed showed the thing press against the station's hull, find a seal, and attach like a lamprey. Then the feed showed a single figure emerge onto the observation deck. Marlow leaned forward. The figure was tall, a head taller than any human, pale blue-gray skin, 4 lidless eyes arranged in a diamond pattern across the face. The eyes moved independently. One watched the dock, one watched the ceiling, one watched the camera watching it. The Riven. Marlow knew the name. Everyone did. The Riven were divided into sects. They fought each other as often as they fought anyone else. They had no formal alliance with the fleet. They were not known for diplomacy. And one of them was standing on the station Marlow needed to reach. The creature raised a hand. The gesture was slow and deliberate. It was not a threat. Then the broadcast came through on the open channel. The voice was precise, accented, but understandable, each word shaped with care. You are the fleet commander. I am Vestorix, observer cast. The station is abandoned. We have been waiting for you to arrive. Marlow felt something settle in his chest, something cold. Not we guessed you would come, not we predicted your path. We have been waiting. His thumb touched the scar above his eye. He pressed down. The pressure helped him focus. How long, he asked. His own voice sounded steady. Before your arrival, 130 of your days. 130 days. The fleet had been in transit for 90. They had not decided on Dustfall until the last jump. They had not broadcast their course. There was no one to broadcast to, but the Riven had known. Dies whispered the thought aloud. Someone told them we were coming. Vestorix's eyes moved, 3 of them. The 4th stayed fixed on the camera. You are correct. The information was provided. I can share the source. I can share much more about the systems ahead, about worlds that can sustain human life, about the forces moving through the void you have entered. Marlow waited. I will share it in person, Vestorix said. Come to the station, come alone. The channel went silent. Dies grabbed his arm, her fingers pressed into his sleeve. The grip was stronger than he expected from someone who had not slept in 2 days. You cannot do that. You cannot walk onto an alien station alone because a stranger with 4 eyes says they have information. She is right, Thero cut in over the comm. Her voice was sharper now. The control was fraying. That is a trap. It is so obviously a trap even someone who has never met a Riven would call it a trap. Marlow looked at the display. Vestorix stood motionless on the observation deck. The 4 eyes were fixed on nothing now, waiting. 40 days of clean air. Maybe 50 if they stopped using the galley scrubbers. We do not have the fuel to jump again, he said. We do not have the supplies to reach the next system. We need this station and the information, or we die drifting. Then I will go, Thero offered. No, they asked for me. If I send you, I am already lying to them. I do not have the luxury of burning trust I have not earned. Dies let go of his arm. She stepped back. Her hands went to her thighs. Wipe, press, old habit. The shuttle is prepped, she said. It was not approval, it was fact. Marlow walked toward the airlock. The corridor stretched ahead in amber gloom. Marlow's boots echoed off metal deck plates. The sound faded into the dark between emergency strips. The station's air moved sluggishly, thick with stale coolant and something damp underneath. Fungal, organic. He kept his hand near his sidearm. Dustfall opened around him in abandoned rooms. Supply crates stacked in neat rows. Food packets still sealed with expiration dates 6 months gone. No signs of struggle. No bloodstains, no bodies. Whatever had happened here, it had not been a fight. He pushed through a door into the conference room. Vestorix stood at the far end, a silhouette against the pale amber glow. Their height made the low ceiling seem closer. 4 lidless eyes caught the light in sequence as their gaze tracked him. Marlow stopped at the table. He did not sit. Vestorix placed a data slate on the surface between them. The gesture was slow and deliberate, a show of openness. Marlow looked at the slate. Navigation charts. A star system with 12 jumps marked in a clean, efficient course. The destination had a symbol he did not recognize. "What do you want?" he asked flatly. Vestorix's neck crest twitched. The membrane made a soft, rustling sound, like dry leaves shifting. They said they wanted information. Specifically, they wanted to know how the human fleet had survived the Marath quarantine. No human ship should have been able to breach that perimeter. Marlow told them the truth. "We did not breach it. The Marath let us through." Vestorix went still. Every part of them stopped moving at once. Their neck crest flattened against their skull. Their 4 eyes blinked in sequence, slow and deliberate, as if processing a logic error. "The Marath do not let anyone through," they said with flat disbelief. Marlow said nothing. A sound came from the docking bay, low and wet, organic. The second shuttle had opened. Vestorix turned toward the door. Their crest remained flat. The figure stepping into the amber light was broader than Vestorix. Darker skin, a deeper blue-gray, and a neck crest thick and ridged. His eyes moved independently. One scanned the room, the other fixed on Marlow. He looked at Marlow the way a man looks at a broken tool, assessing, dismissing. "Ulmert." He did not introduce himself. He walked past Vestorix without acknowledgement and stopped at the table. His gaze dropped to the data slate. He picked it up. Marlow watched him scan the navigation charts. The harvester's lips pressed thin. He set the slate down and spoke for the first time. His voice was lower and rougher than Vestorix's. "The system Vestorix offered is already claimed by the harvester sect. The navigation data is useless." Vestorix stepped forward. Their crest lifted slightly, but they said nothing. Ulmer turned to Marlow. "The Riven are not one people. We are many sects. We do not agree on what to do with the human fleet." Vestorix's sect wanted to observe and learn. Ulmer's sect wanted to extract what they needed and discard the rest. Marlow felt the weight of that sentence settle in his chest. 2 predators in the same room, still deciding how to share the kill. He kept his voice even. "What do you want?" Ulmer's mouth moved into something that might have been a smile on a different face. On him, it looked like a muscle spasm. "The Harvester sect has another offer. Safe passage through Harvester territory, in exchange for something the fleet has not yet realized they possess." Marlow's hand stayed near his sidearm. "What is that?" Ulmer's eyes tracked independently. One fixed on Marlow's face. The other drifted to the door behind him. "The answer requires a demonstration. Your escort frigate carries a device we have never seen, the resonance driver." Marlow's jaw tightened. He did not ask how Ulmer knew about it. Ulmer said he wanted a live test. In exchange, he would provide coordinates of an unclaimed system one jump from the Harvester border. The fleet could refuel, resupply, and continue their search. Vestorix spoke for the first time since Ulmer entered. Their voice carried a sharper edge. The Harvester sect has no authority to offer safe passage. The Observer Council has not sanctioned this negotiation. Ulmer did not look at them. The Observer Council spends too long watching things they do not understand. The Harvester sect acts. That is why we have the navigation data. That is why we have real power. Vestorix's crest flattened again. They said nothing. Marlow looked between them. The split was real, not a performance. These two factions did not trust each other any more than they trusted him. What would the demonstration involve? He asked. Ulmer said the fleet would jump to a dead system 3 jumps away. A Riven battle wreck orbited the 4th planet. The Wakeful would fire the resonance driver at the wreck. Ulmer would observe from his ship. If the device performed as described, he would provide the coordinates. And if it does not? Ulmer's eyes stopped moving, both fixed on Marlow. Then the Harvester sect will have no reason to negotiate. The threat hung in the amber light, unsoftened, unqualified. Marlow thought about the Wakeful and Thero, about the 4-second limit on the resonance driver and the 30-minute cooldown, about what Ulmer would do if he saw a weapon that could disable his ship. He thought about the fleet, 3 weeks of reserve power, life support at 67%, 58,000 people breathing recycled air. "I will consider the offer," he said. Ulmer's mouth twitched again. "Consider quickly, the Harvester sect is not patient." He turned and walked out. The shuttle door irised open with a wet organic sound. Warm air rushed out, carrying a smell like copper and salt. Ulmer stepped inside without looking back. The door sealed. The silence returned. Vestorix stood at the table with their 4 eyes fixed on the data slate. Their crest was still flat. They said something in a low voice. The words were Riven. Marlow did not understand them, but he understood the tone. He walked to the door and paused. He looked back at Vestorix. "Is Ulmer's offer real?" Vestorix's eyes blinked in sequence. "The offer is real, but the Harvester sect does not keep promises. They keep what they take." Marlow turned and walked back down the amber corridor. Behind him, Vestorix's neck crest rustled in the silence. The sound of dry leaves shifting, the sound of something still deciding which way to fall. The engineering bay of the venture pressed in from all sides. The air was thick and metallic. Ground copper from the failing power relays coated every breath. Dies crouched beside the open panel. Her forearms were slick with sweat. The burn scars stood out pale and puckered against her flushed skin. A loose panel vibrated against its frame nearby. It made a rhythmic rattle no one had bothered to fix for 6 weeks. She wiped her palms on her thighs. Old habit. The burns still pulled tight when she flexed her fingers. The diagnostic screen glowed amber in her hands. She read the numbers again. They did not change. Marlow stopped pacing. His thumb ran along the scar above his eye. He knew the look on her face. "Talk to me, Dies," he said. She stood and turned to face the room. Marlow waited. Captain Thero stood with her arms crossed near the door, gray-streaked head tilted, watching. Finley sat on a storage crate with his arms folded tight across his chest, jaw set. Juma stood near the bulkhead with her hands clasped together at her waist, knuckles white. "The power relay is degrading faster than I can repair it," Dies said. Her voice was flat and professional. She used that voice when she did not want anyone to hear how tired she was. "We have 20 days, not 40, 20 and the relays fracture." "The system Vestorix offered is 12 jumps away," Marlow said. Dies nodded. "We will not make it." Finley stood up from the crate. The movement was sharp and aggressive. "Then we take Ulmer's deal. Safe passage through Harvester territory puts a nearer system in 3 jumps. 3, not 12. We can make 3. Marlow shook his head. "We do not trust Ulmer." "We do not trust anyone," Finley shot back. "That is the luxury we cannot afford anymore." Thero spoke without moving from the door. "Ulmer moved his ship closer. He is within weapons range now." A beat of silence. Dies heard the relay rattle in its frame. The sound was like a tooth loose in a socket. "The resonance driver is ready," Thero continued. "But it buys us minutes, not hours. 4 seconds of pulse, 30 minutes to cool. He can kill us 10 times in half an hour." Juma unclasped her hands. Her voice was thin. Then what is the plan, Marlow? We sit here and wait for the relays to die. We starve on a dead station while the Riven watch us fade. Marlow did not answer. Dyes watched his thumb move along the scar. He was thinking. She had seen him think his way through 50 crises in 12 years. She had never seen him look this hollow while doing it. I found something, Dyes said. In the station archives, a log file from a Riven memory extractor. She pulled up the data on her screen and turned it so the others could see. The screen showed a timeline, a single occupant, a Riven designation, a recording window of 72 hours. The last occupant of this station was a Riven who tried to defect to the Marath, Dyes said. The extraction was not voluntary. Juma went still. Finley stopped breathing for a moment. The device pulls the memory out, Dyes said. It damages the source. The Riven here had his whole history drained from him, then they left him empty. You do not know that, Finley said. I know what the log shows. The extraction ended. The occupant never left. The station was abandoned with him inside. Juma broke then. Her composure cracked like a weld under stress. I have children on this ship, she said. Her voice rose into a tremble. 2 children. They breathe recycled air and eat ration paste. They have never seen a world with open sky. You want to gamble their lives on the idea the Riven are too scary to negotiate with. Marlow faced her. His voice was low. I want to gamble their lives on the idea the Riven do not keep their word. Finley stepped between them. This is not a command decision, Marlow. This is a fleet decision. We vote. Thero uncrossed her arms. She did not move, but something in her posture shifted. The vote was not part of the chain of command. It was an override, a challenge. Juma raised her hand. I vote to accept Ulmer's deal. Finley raised his hand. Same. Marlow looked at Thero. Thero nodded once, then she raised her hand. I vote no. Marlow raised his. No. 4 hands, 2 and 2. The room went silent except for the rattle of the loose panel. Dyes felt the heat of the failing relays on her back. She felt the sweat running down her temples. She felt the burned scars tight across her forearms. The vote is tied, Finley said. Dyes decides. Dyes looked at Marlow. His eyes were steady. He did not pressure her. He never had. That was why she trusted him. That was why she had followed him across 10 systems and 3 years of running. She looked at her own arms, the scars where the fire had taken her skin. The flesh grew back wrong, pale and tight, a map of what she had already survived. She looked at Juma and the fear in her eyes. At Finley, whose anger hid the same fear, just expressed differently. The fleet cannot trust the Riven, Dyes said. Finley dropped his hand. Juma closed her eyes. But Dyes kept talking. Her voice was quiet. I cannot stop you from opening your own channel to Ulmer. I am not your commander. I am an engineer. Finley turned and walked to the door. Juma followed. The hatch cycled open, letting in a gust of cooler air from the corridor. Then it closed behind them. Thero looked at Marlow. He looked at Dyes. The loose panel rattled. The air tasted like copper. Dyes wiped her palms on her thighs. She said it very quietly, just to Marlow. I have access to the station's external comms array. I can block their channel. I can buy us time. Marlow went still. She asked the question with her eyes before she said the words aloud. Should I? The observation deck smelled like recycled air and cold metal. Marlow pressed his palm against the window. He felt the vibration of something large approaching. The bone cutter hung against the stars like a shard of polished bone. Its organic hull pulsed with slow, rhythmic light. It was closer than it had been 10 minutes ago, close enough to see the individual membrane ridges along its flanks. Vestorix stood 2 meters to his left. Their 4 lidless eyes were fixed on the harvester vessel. Their neck crest twitched in quick, irregular pulses. Agitation. Marlow had learned to read that tell in the past hour. The harvester is not offering passage, Marlow said. He kept his voice flat. He wanted to see how they reacted to fact, not accusation. Vestorix's crest went still for 1 beat. Then it twitched again. Ulmer's deal is a trap, Marlow continued. He does not want us to cross his territory. He wants the fleet, the people, the data, whatever technology we pulled through the Marath quarantine. Vestorix turned their head. The movement was slow and deliberate. The Harvester sect is not my sect. I'm an observer. We watch, we do not act. Marlow looked at them. He thought about the empty station, the defector who had been extracted memory by memory, the power relays that would fail in 20 days. He thought about how long the Riven had waited for the fleet to arrive. You watched the last occupant of this station, Marlow said. You watched the harvesters take him apart. What did you see? Vestorix was silent for a long moment. The bone cutter grew larger in the window, close enough now to see the boarding pods clustered along its underside like insect eggs. The defector was extracted, Vestorix said. They spoke carefully, each word placed with precision. He was not killed. He was taken apart memory by memory. The pieces were sold to 9 different buyers across 4 star systems. Marlow felt something cold settle in his chest. He had known since Vestorix told them about the 130 days of waiting. Hearing it confirmed was different. It was a door closing. Thero's voice cut through the channel. Harvester ship is launching boarding pods, 15 of them, green exhaust trails. They are burning through Atmo now. Marlow saw them, small shapes dropping away from the bone cutter's belly. Each one trailed a faint green line, fireflies against the black. He counted 12, then 13, then 15. Permission to fire, Thero said. Her voice was tight but controlled. She was ready. She had been ready since Ulmer first docked. Granted, Marlow said. The channel went silent. Marlow watched the pods grow larger. He counted seconds and heartbeats. The wakeful fired. The resonance driver's activation was invisible from the observation deck. No flash, no beam of light, but Marlow saw the nearest boarding pod go dark, its green trail cut off. The pod tumbled end over end, dead systems, no thrust, no life. A coffin falling through vacuum. The bone cutter shuddered. Marlow saw its organic hull ripple like muscle contracting against a wound. But it did not stop. It kept coming. More pods, Thero said. 14 remaining. The driver is cycling, 30 minutes. Dize's voice broke in. She was breathless and running. He could hear her footsteps on the channel. Marlow, the station's core, there is a secondary power system. Independent, fully charged. Marlow turned from the window. Fully charged for how long? Hundreds of years, maybe more. The station was built to last. The secondary grid is separate from everything else. It could power the defense grid. Can you bring it online? I do not know if it will work. The grid is old, really old. The targeting algorithms were written by a species probably extinct, but the power is there. Marlow looked at Vestorix. The observer was watching him. Their 4 eyes tracked his face, his hands, his posture, studying, filleting him with observation. Do it, Marlow said. Bring the grid online. Dize said something he did not catch. The channel went quiet. The bone cutter kept advancing. Marlow turned to face Vestorix fully. He let his hand fall from the window. He looked into those 4 lidless eyes and did not look away. You watched the defector get taken apart, he said. You watched the harvesters prepare this trap. You watched us walk into it, and you did nothing. Vestorix's crest went completely still. The membrane flattened against their neck like a second skin. I am an observer, they said. The words were quiet, almost fragile. We watch, that is our function. Watching is not neutral, Marlow said. You watch, and by watching you enable. You are not innocent. You are the witness who does not speak, the hand that does not reach. You are as responsible as the one who pulls the trigger. Vestorix stood motionless. Their chest did not rise and fall like a human's. They had no visible breath. They were a statue in gray-blue skin, frozen by something Marlow could not name. No one has ever said that to me before, they said. Then they turned. Their footsteps on the deck plates were soft and precise. 4 distinct taps per step. They walked toward the door leading to the station's interior. Marlow watched them go. Where are you going? Vestorix paused. They did not turn around. I am going to observe the defense grid's activation from a closer position. The door opened. They stepped through. The door closed. Marlow stood alone on the observation deck. The bone cutter filled the window now. He could see the texture of its hull, the way the membrane flexed and breathed. The boarding pods were seconds away from impact. A deep hum vibrated through the deck plates. It started low, below hearing, then rose until Marlow felt it in his teeth. The station's defense grid was powering on. The lights in the observation deck flickered. The hum grew louder. Then it stopped. The deck went silent. Marlow waited. Nothing happened. Dize's voice came back on the channel. It was not breathless anymore. It was something worse, something careful. Marlow, the grid is online, but it is not targeting the harvester ship. He looked at the window, at the bone cutter, at the boarding pods now close enough to see their entry locks. Then the station's guns turned. Not toward the approaching enemy. Toward the fleet. The bridge of the Wakeful smelled like burning insulation before the first shot hit. Thero stood at the helm console with her hands flat on the metal surface. She could feel the ship's vibration through her palms. Her crew moved around her in practiced silence. No one screamed. No one asked questions. They had drilled for this moment 100 times in the dark between stars. The display showed the Venture dead center of the defense grid's targeting solution. Thero pressed the comm. "Wakeful to all stations, we are moving to intercept." The navigation officer looked up. His name was Teller. He had 3 children on the Venture. "Captain, the grid will fire through us." "I know." She gave the order without hesitation. The Wakeful's engines screamed as the ship swung between the station and the refugee fleet. The hull would absorb the first volley. It was the only play left. "All hands brace for impact." The defense grid fired. The first shot hit the Wakeful's aft section. The impact threw Thero forward. Her console caught her ribs. The ship lurched sideways. The alarm started, a rising and falling pitch she had learned to filter out years ago. It meant damage. It meant fire. It meant something was dead that should not be. Smoke poured from the ceiling vents. Gray and acrid, it stung her eyes. "Report," she said. The navigation officer's voice cracked. "Port engine is gone. We are venting atmosphere from cargo bay 2. Seal the bay, kill the alarm." The alarm cut out. The silence was worse. Thero's display showed 3 new contacts, boarding pods. They slid past the Wakeful's crippled hull like seeds released from a pod. 2 of them hit the Venture. The third landed on the station's docking ring. Thero watched the Venture's silhouette on her display. She could not help them. No weapons left that could reach those pods without hitting the fleet. The Wakeful was a shield. Shields absorb damage. They do not shoot back. She opened a channel to Dies. "Status." The comm crackled. Dies' voice came through breathless. "I am in the control room. The console is in Riven script. I cannot read any of it." "Where is Vestorix?" A pause. Thero heard footsteps. She heard Dies curse. "They are already here. Their hands are on the interface. They are overriding the targeting protocols." Thero watched the defense grid's targeting reticle shift. The red line tracking the Venture blinked once, twice. Then it went dark. "Override complete," Dies said. "The grid is offline." Thero exhaled. The tension in her shoulders did not release. She knew what came next. Dies spoke again. Her voice was higher now. "Captain, the power core, the readings are spiking. The station is going to detonate." "How long?" 6 minutes, maybe less." Thero turned to her navigation officer. "Open a fleet-wide channel." The channel opened. Thero spoke to every ship in the fleet. Her voice was flat and controlled. She had practiced this too. "All vessels, emergency scatter protocol. Every ship jumps on its own vector. Regroup at the coordinates Vestorix provided. That is an order. Do not wait for the Wakeful. Do not wait for anyone." The navigation officer stared at her. "Captain, if those coordinates are false, then we die alone instead of together. Execute." The comm filled with acknowledgments. One by one, the ships of the refugee fleet began to move. The display showed their drive signatures flaring. The Venture was the last to jump. Thero watched it go. 3 Harvester boarding pods were still attached to its hull. She knew what would happen to the people inside those pods. The Harvester sect extracted memories. They drained minds until nothing remained but a shell. She knew what the people on the Venture would do to the Harvesters before they let that happen. They would fight. They would kill. They would break the pods open with their bare hands if they had to. She did not flinch. She had seen what humans did to people who threatened their children. "The station core, give me the count." The display showed 2 minutes. The numbers were bright red. They counted down in silence. "Navigation, prepare to jump." The navigation officer's hands moved across his console. "Coordinates locked, course set." The display showed 1 minute. Smoke filled the bridge. Thero's eyes burned. She did not look away from the display. 30 seconds, the navigation officer said. The station's power core readings were off the scale. The numbers climbed. Thero watched them climb. 15 seconds. The ship shuddered. The station's core went critical. "Jump." The Wakeful folded space. The transition was instant. One moment they were in the Dustfall system with a dying station behind them. The next moment they were somewhere else. Thero's display flickered and reset. The navigation data loaded slowly. She stared at the coordinates on the screen. The system name was blank, no designation, no star chart match. It was a patch of empty space appearing on no Riven map. It appeared on no human map either. But something was there. A structure, a door, a passage. The display updated. The sensor array confirmed it. A stable wormhole entrance, open and waiting. Thero looked at the navigation officer. He looked back. Neither of them spoke. She opened the comm. All ships report. One by one, the fleet's signatures appeared on her display. 11 vessels. The Venture was among them. Thero closed her eyes for a single second. "The coordinates are real," she said. "We are going in." The Wakeful moved toward the wormhole. The door was open. There was no telling what waited on the other side. In the dark system, there was no star, no distant glow of a sun. Just black so absolute the running lights of the ships were the only color in existence, red and white and amber, scattered across the void like embers from a fire already dead. The fleet had reassembled over 3 hours. Marlow stood on the control deck of the Venture with his hands braced against a console. It hummed at a pitch he could feel in his teeth. His eyes were hollow. He had not slept in 49 hours. His body had stopped asking for it. 17 ships. They had started with 20. Thero's voice came through the comm. Her tone was flat and controlled, but something lurked underneath, not quite relief, not quite exhaustion. Something that sounded like a woman counting her dead. "Wakeful is stable. Port engine is gone. Life support is intact." "Confirmed," Marlow said. "Casualties. 14, 3 critical." He closed his eyes. 14 names he would have to learn, 14 letters he would have to write. Later, not now. Dies walked onto the deck with a bandage wrapped around her forearm. Blood had soaked through the white fabric and dried to a dark brown. She held a datapad in her other hand. Her palms were smeared with something black, grease or ash. He could not tell. "One pod breached the hull," she said. "Section 7, the fighting took 10 minutes. Marlow watched her face. She was not looking at him. She was scrolling through damage reports with the mechanical focus of someone who would break if she stopped moving. "The harvesters. Dead, all of them. Hours. 6, she finally looked up. They held the corridor, gave engineering time to seal the bulkhead. 6 more names. He stored them in the same place as the others. Vestorix stood near the observation window. Their tall frame was still. Their 4 lidless eyes were fixed on something outside, something only they could see. Low light made their pale blue-gray skin luminesce. A soft glow pulsed along their throat and chest, synchronized with their heartbeat. They had not moved in 20 minutes. Marlow walked over and stopped at the edge of their peripheral vision, close enough to speak without raising his voice. "The coordinates you gave us were accurate." Vestorix did not turn. Their neck crest twitched once, a small flutter of translucent membrane. "Yes. This system has resources. Asteroid fields, frozen water. We could build something here." "You could." Marlow waited. The silence stretched. In the dark outside, the ship's running lights drifted like slow fireflies. Each one carried people watching their home burn. "Why were you waiting at Dustfall?" Vestorix's eyes shifted. 2 remained fixed on the void. The other 2 turned to look at Marlow. The effect was unnerving, a face watching him from 2 directions at once. "The Riven have known about humanity for 40 years. Marlow felt the words land like a physical weight. He said nothing. "Your first FTL ship left Sol 43 years ago. We detected the signature within 6 months. We have been watching ever since." "Watching?" "Yes, observing, recording, cataloging." Vestorix turned their full body to face him. Their voice was calm and clinical, but something behind it sounded like hesitation. "The Riven are divided, Commander, you know this, but you do not know why." Marlow crossed his arms. The scar above his eyebrow pulled tight. "Tell me." "Because humans terrify us." The word hung in the air. Terrify. A Riven had used a word implying fear, genuine, species-level fear. "Not because you are powerful," Vestorix continued. "You are not. Your technology is crude. Your biology is fragile. Your ships are held together with materials we abandoned 3 centuries ago. By every measurable standard, you should be irrelevant." But you are not predictable." Vestorix's neck crest flattened against their shoulders, a sign of unease Marlow had learned to read. "The Riven maintain memory archives of 400 cataloged species. Every one of them follows patterns. Their diplomacy has rhythms. Their warfare has structures. Their emotions have triggers and responses that can be mapped. We can predict what they will do in any given situation with 97% accuracy. And humans, 15%. Marlow let out a breath. 15%. They had been watched for 4 decades, and the Riven still could not figure them out. Dies walked over. She held the datapad up. Her bandaged arm left dark spots of blood on the casing. Found something in the station debris. Wakeful salvaged a data archive before we jumped. It survived the explosion. She handed the datapad to Marlow. He scrolled through it. The text was Riven script, angular symbols in vertical columns, but the translation overlay was active. Records, hundreds of them, every human military engagement in the last 40 years, every skirmish, battle, and diplomatic confrontation. The Riven had documented everything. The Marath quarantine, the abyssal incident at the L5 belt, the Sporax trade dispute that nearly turned into a war. Marlow scrolled to the bottom of the archive. The final entry was a single line of translated text written in the same clinical script as everything else. Cannot model. Recommend avoidance. He read it twice, 3 times. Then he handed the datapad back to Dies and turned to face Vestorix fully. You want to understand us? Yes. Then I will tell you something. Marlow's voice was quiet and flat, the voice of a man who had been running so long he forgot what standing still felt like. Understanding is not the same as knowing. Vestorix tilted their head. Their 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a slow wave of lids. Explain. You have studied us for 40 years. You have records of every fight we have ever been in. You have watched us build and burn and rebuild. You have cataloged our behavior until your archives are full of it. Marlow stepped closer. And you still do not know us. That is accurate. It will always be accurate. He held Vestorix's gaze, all 4 of their eyes, because we do not know ourselves. Vestorix went still. Their luminescence dimmed. For a long moment they said nothing. That is the truth, Marlow said. It is the thing you cannot process. We are not a puzzle with a solution. We are not a species following a pattern. We are a species that makes up the rules as we go every single time and breaks them when they stop working. That is why you cannot model us. That is why you are afraid. Vestorix's voice dropped, soft, almost reverent. Yes. The word was barely audible, but Marlow heard it. Dies cleared her throat. She was still holding the datapad, but she stared at a different section now, a part of the archive she had not shown him yet. Marlow. The tone of her voice made him turn. There is one more record. He walked over. She held the datapad up so he could read it. The entry was different from the others, not a tactical report or a species analysis. It was a communication, a transmission from a Riven sect not heard from in 20 years. The text was fragmented. The translation overlay struggled with parts of it, but the message was clear. The sect believed the only way to survive humanity was to join them. Marlow read the last lines of the transmission. They cut off mid-word. The final data point was a set of coordinates. He looked at the numbers, then he looked at Vestorix. Who sent this? Vestorix's skin flickered. Their heartbeat pulse quickened. The blue glow along their throats stuttered. A sect that no longer exists. What happened to them? Vestorix did not answer. Their 4 eyes were fixed on the datapad. Marlow understood the question was not whether the sect had been destroyed. The question was which side had done it. The bridge of the Wakeful hummed with the deep vibration of repaired engines. Marlow stood at the display. His thumb ran along the scar above his eye. The coordinates glowed green on the glass, a single point of light, a system on the edge of every chart they had. Dies sat at the console with her bandaged forearm resting on the keyboard. She had not slept. The burns on her hands were fresh pink where the bandages did not cover them. Thero stood at the back of the bridge with her arms crossed, gray-streaked hair still flecked with debris from the station. Juma sat near the secondary display with her hands folded in her lap. She looked shaken but relieved. Finley leaned against the bulkhead. His eyes moved across the numbers like he was counting something no one else could see. Vestorix stood apart. Their blue-gray skin pulsed with a slow rhythm. Their 4 lidless eyes were fixed on the display. Marlow spoke. The coordinates mean nothing to me, numbers and vectors, a destination. Vestorix shifted their weight, their neck crest twitched. That system is dangerous. Marlow turned to face them. Vestorix said the system sat at the edge of a nebula. The gas degraded sensor performance. Ships that went in might not come out. They had known of the lost sect. They had assumed the sect was dead. Finley shook his head. Then we should not go, he gestured at the display. We have resources here, debris from the station, materials, we can build, we can wait. We cannot defend this system. Thero said flatly. She did not move. The Harvester sect knows where we are. It will come back with more ships, not one, many. Finley opened his mouth, closed it. Dies ran a simulation. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with the economy of someone who had done this 1,000 times. The numbers appeared on the display, 18%. That was the probability they survived the next year if they stayed. If they went, the probability became incalculable. Unknown variables, unknown threats, unknown opportunities. Marlow stared at the number, 18%. He had carried worse odds before. He had carried worse odds every day for the last 3 years. "We go," he said. Juma exhaled. She did not speak. Finley looked at him. "Marlow." "Not because it is safe," Marlow said. He paused. "Because staying means accepting that the galaxy is a place where we can only survive by hiding." He looked at each of them. "We did not cross 100 light years to hide." Thero nodded once, the closest thing to approval she had ever given. Vestorix stepped forward. Their fingers touched the display, the glass smudged where they pressed. Their voice was quiet and precise. "I wish to come with you." Marlow stared at them. The request did not make sense. Vestorix was an observer with no loyalty to humans and no stake in human survival. Vestorix said the observers had watched humans for 40 years. They had gathered data. They had built models. They had learned nothing. Human behavior violated every assumption. The predictions remained at 15%. They would not learn by staying still. Their head tilted, a gesture Marlow had begun to read as emphasis. If the humans are willing to be unpredictable, then the observers must be willing to be uncertain. Marlow looked at Thero. Her expression did not change. He looked at Dies. She wiped her palm on her thigh. Old habit. He looked at the display, the green point of light, the system that might ruin them or save them. "Yes," he said. Vestorix made a sound Marlow had never heard from them. A soft vibration. It might have been relief. It might have been something else entirely. Thero gave the order. The fleet prepared for jump. Marlow stood at the display. His hand rested on the glass. The coordinates were cold beneath his fingers. The Wakeful's engines hummed. The sound vibrated through the deck and into his bones. He had learned to feel that vibration. It meant the ship was alive. It meant they were still moving. Dies counted down from 30. Thero took her seat at the command station. Her hands rested on the controls. Vestorix stood beside Marlow. Their presence was strange and tall. Their 4 eyes reflected the green light from the display. 10 seconds. Juma closed her eyes. Finley stopped calculating. 5 seconds. The engine surged. The deck pressed against Marlow's feet. The display went white. Then black. The jump field closed around them. Space became a smear of light and motion. The nebula swallowed them. Sensors went blank. The display showed nothing but static. White noise, empty. Marlow held his breath. 8 minutes. The static did not change. The sensors reported nothing. The fleet had jumped into a void of gas and silence. No stars, no planets, no signals. Dies watched the readings. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. She looked at Marlow and shook her head. 8 minutes and 12 seconds. The static shifted. Marlow saw it before anyone spoke, a break in the noise, a pattern, a signal. Dies leaned forward. Her voice was sharp. "I have something." The display flickered. The static resolved into a waveform, then text. The text scrolled across the screen. Vestorix made the soft vibration sound again. Their neck crest was fully extended. They stared at the display. Marlow read the words. They were old. The grammar was archaic. The syntax belonged to a dialect not spoken in 50 years, but it was human. The signal identified itself as an automated relay beacon. It gave a system's designation, a maintenance schedule, and a location. Then it added a final line, a single sentence that made Marlow's chest go cold. The line read, "Primary settlement operational. Population stable at 2,400. Request supply resupply at earliest convenience." The bridge was silent. Dies had stopped breathing. Thero turned in her chair. Her face was unreadable. Juma was crying. She did not seem to know it. Marlow stared at the display. Someone was out there. Someone human. Not a colony. Not a remnant. A settlement, operational, stable, with a population that had survived for 50 years in a system no one else had ever charted. The nebula was not a trap. It was a wall built by people who did not want to be found. Marlow touched the display. His fingers left a smudge next to Vestorix's. He looked at the coordinates. The fleet had a destination. The fleet had a home. The static continued to scroll across the display. Old syntax, old words, a human language that should have been dead. It was not dead, it was waiting. Marlow opened his mouth to speak. The signal changed. The text stopped scrolling. The waveform flattened. A new message appeared. This one was not automated, it was live. The message was 5 words. 5 words that made Marlow's hand freeze against the glass. 5 words that made Vestorix step backward, their 4 eyes widening, their neck crest flattening against their skull. The message read, "We have been expecting you." Marlow turned to face the crew. The question hung in the air: who was expecting them, and what had they walked into? He looked at Vestorix, whose luminescence had dimmed to a faint whisper. He looked at Dyes, whose hand had stopped midway to her thigh. He looked at Thero, who met his gaze with hard eyes. "We go in," Marlow said. "We find out who sent that signal. We find out what they know." He paused. "And we find out if they are still human." The fleet held formation. The wakeful led the way. The wormhole ahead shimmered, not a door, but a throat waiting to swallow them. Marlow pressed his thumb to the scar above his eye. One last time, then he gave the order. "All ships forward." The fleet moved into the light.